developed like this book explicitly documents mindset fluidity. Learnt yourself and you learn how to regulate, how to manage fear. Operation, when lads got captured by Iranians, we would have been slaughtered, do you know what I mean? Because they had like mounted weapons in the boats that were like 50 cals and stuff. We didn't really have anything. You can control what you can control. And you just arrive at a place where you're just like, what will be, will be. If my time's up, my time's up. And it doesn't matter where I am, whether I'm in Afghanistan or whether I'm walking streets in Leeds. I think when you arrive there, you ultimately, you have a great deal of comfort then.
On this episode of the Elite Podcast, I'm speaking to Gareth Timmins, former Royal Marine Commando and best-selling author with a PhD in performance-based cognitive science. Gareth, how you doing?
I'm very well, mate.
Lovely
very
to
well, thanks.
Brilliant. Good to have you on the show, mate.
Thank you.
Find the place all right?
Yes, yeah, great. Absolutely.
So it's Leeds, isn't it, you came from?
I've come from Leeds this morning, mate. Yeah, straight across the Pennines and that, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Great stuff. So it's good to have you here anyway. So obviously, just as I said to you earlier when I spoke to you, I've just completed your book. What's it called? The 0.1%?
Yeah, becoming the 0.1%.
Becoming the 0.1%. Do you know what? I've heard of that a few years ago as well.
Yeah.
And obviously read it. And I must say, I think you've summed up the training for the Royal Marines better than anywhere else I've actually seen it done before, to be honest with you. Yeah,
that's kind of exactly what I wanted to do. It one of like the biggest kind of motivating factors really to kind of getting it out there.
Yeah, because a couple of the documentaries that have been out haven't really, they look good, but they've been done by mainstream TV and there's only so much they can show, isn't there, on that?
Exactly. To be honest, mate, I think the paras have always have done it so much better.
Yeah, the last couple of documentaries have been all right, haven't they?
They've been really good, mate, from the paras, but the Marines have always kind of had a tendency to water things down, and it's always been certainly massively frustrating from a spectator's kind of perspective. But in the I think in the Royal Marines community as well, we've just felt like we've been a bit shortchanged by that.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is probably because they're held in quite high esteem, aren't they, the Royal Marine? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Royal Marine are looked up to. They're royal. It's got the title of royal before them.
Yeah.
And, and they've got quite a clean reputation.
Yeah.
Unless you're down in the local areas and they're all dressed up in their female rigs. Do you know what I mean? We're not the real Royal Marines. But generally, they've got quite a clean reputation and they're looked up to and they're loved, and the Navy like them.
Yes.
And the military like them. And the paras is a bit different, like dirty little secret that no one really likes.
That's it, yeah.
No one likes us. Everyone hates us, but they need us.
Just keep on the fringes, isn't it?
Just keep them away and break glass in case of war.
That's exactly it, mate. Yeah.
So there is quite a few, obviously there's a lot of similarities with the Marines and the paras, but there's also quite a lot of differences, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. I think it'll be quite fun.
Yeah.
Because we can get it from both our perspectives.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
But yeah, your book really did sum it up well, and it was really enjoyable to read. And because I've not been through Royal Marine training, I've been through the parachute regiment training, and I know what that's like. And not many people have done both, have they? I do know a couple of people that have done it, as you probably do, but I've only ever experienced the one. So it was really good when I was reading it to see the similarities and go, wow, that sounds horrible. Do you know what I mean? Some of it, and you really summed it up well. And I was literally cringing in some places. Thought, oh my God, the thought of like doing all that again, and the vulnerability and that feeling of being a recruit.
Yeah. Oh God, it's all that. It's just like I think you forget, don't you? We've got a propensity, like in our psychology, to forget bad times.
100%, yeah.
And you look back with rose-tinted glasses and think, you know what, this wasn't. It was just the best time ever. But as soon as you start reciting some of it and looking back, you're just like, God, I would not want to do that again, especially at our ages now. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely a young man's kind of venture, is that?
Absolutely. Well, do you know, did I tell you, I'm actually rejoined at 45 and did all the 4-para. I'm in 4-para now.
Oh, really?
I joined up at 45. I was one of the oldest to redo it.
Right. Wow.
I know, don't ask me what I was thinking of that, but because of that reason, looking back at everything in rose-tinted glasses and thinking how much fun it was, and I think everything's fun when you're in your 20s anyway, isn't it? You forget that
you're just completely carefree. You've got you've got no standards or expectation. You're just anything goes. When you get older, you want your comforts, you want everything like that. Yeah. So credit to you, mate, being 45 and doing that.
There was an itch that needed scratching again, and I did it, and it took me 2 years to get back in. I started when I was 43. which was 43, 44. And it took me 2 years to get in because of COVID. I got rejected 4 separate occasions for age, for different, because my medical record, as you can imagine, was just ridiculous at that age.
By that time,
imagine what yours is like from all the injuries, from all the shit you did before.
Yeah.
So I got in and I had to do 11 weekends and I had to do 2.5 weeks in depot as a recruit.
Wow, mate.
And the first few days at the depot, the weekends were great. It's my mate was the sergeant major in charge of it. I was in mortars with.
Right.
So I obviously had to do everything you needed to do. We're professionals, aren't we? You've got to. So, but all the beastings and the fucking arounds that, just I didn't have to like participate in that. So I was a junior NCO before, obviously, when I was serving.
Yeah.
And the guys were dead great. But then I went to depot, and that wasn't anything to do with four power. The regulars run that. The regular staff, they're all like mid-20s, like gun ho, power edge. Full screws and well, say 25 to 35 years of age, and they were fucking unbelievable still. When people say like standard slip and things go backwards, mate, these guys were absolutely everything you would imagine. And they were like 15 years
prior.
15 years younger than me. So,
I think there's always a tendency to do that. I mean, it were a big thing. Like when I went in Marines, it was still like very much a 90s methodology. And there were still remnants from Falklands from 80s coming through. In
2005, was it, you say?
2005, in terms of culture and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And there's always like, training's not as hard. It's like these guys coming through, like they won't be able to keep up with the demands of Afghan that were on the table and stuff. But we did. Yeah. Everybody did. And it's like people come through and it's still the standards are still the same. I know training's changed a bit now and whatnot, but you're still getting really brilliant people coming through. It's just a bit different. Yeah. You know what I mean?
When I remember when I passed out in 1995 and we went to Dover and it was summer and there was no limits on what you could tab in, like in the heat then. Not that I was aware of. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And we did the fastest 10 mile I think we've ever done. Like you do P company once is 1 hour, like you come in 1 hour 45. I think about that, or 1 hour. It's meant to be 1 hour 50, isn't it? But they come in slightly before, I think, or they used to, and then they have the stragglers, and everyone's in within the time. But we did it. I don't know what it was. Maybe an hour and a half, something like that. I know people have done them in 1 hour 20 before. And it was red hot, and it was in Dover on all the hills. And there was only me and about a handful of other people because it was an acceptance carder. So I was like, we got to battalion and was getting thrashed more than depot. I thought, when does this end? And we did it, right? And they just did it to prove a point. And there was a handful of us that got through it, and everyone was going, the fucking Joes are shit. Yeah. They're the worst they've ever been. It's because it moved from Aldershot to Catterick, which split over Lichfield and Catterick, and they remember that was in 1995, and everyone in the army now has probably joined since then, and the army's done, and the military and the Marines have done some of the best work they've ever done over Afghan. Yeah. So it just shows you, it's 100%. Just an elite mindset, I think, isn't it? Where you just everything's shit apart from you.
I think once you've got that kind of mindset or that propensity to push psychologically or whatever, or you've met a baseline of hardship, that can then be applied to anything. And you can excel. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you've got your baseline, and you can always just kind of upscale or adjust in line with performance demands and stuff like that. So, I think once you've been through that process, P company or whatever, I think once you've got that level of understanding about yourself and your emotional regulation, you can apply that to anything and be successful.
100%. We were talking about that earlier, weren't we? About entrepreneurship and elite soldiers. Yeah. I know a lot of people, Marines, paras, and special forces guys, SES, SBS, and exceptional entrepreneurs.
100%. Yeah. And I've looked at this, mate. I looked at this for book 2, and like
when book 2.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Comes out in July.
Does it?
Yeah, it comes out in July in UK, and then in October it's going to America. Fantastic. This year being published in America this time on this book. So it's just brilliant, mate. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you were saying.
About book 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, so mate, this just came about after I published Becoming, really, in 2021. I just felt like I had a bit more to say and write about and whatnot. And all of a sudden, mate, I went back of a taxi near One-Eyed Park in London. And Piers Morgan had just brought out an article, a scathing kind of article on Simone Biles, just saying that she was mentally weak because she'd pulled out of Tokyo Olympics because she was struggling with a psychological anxiety condition called the twisties, when you lose your perception of where your body is in the air when you're spinning.
Quite important, I'd imagine, for gymnastics.
100%, yeah. You know what I mean? And it can affect anybody.
So
But Piers Morgan were just of the mindset that...
the athlete Piers Morgan.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's never done anything,
Elite
right?
athlete.
Yeah, that's never done anything like that. It's just like saying, I don't believe it's a thing. You're clearly going to lose, and that's why you've pulled out, and you're a disgrace to your country and all your followers and all stuff like that. And probably like attacked her.
I remember that.
Brought out this article. I think it was in Daily Mail or something. And he just had loads of comments, people agreeing. And I thought, if he thinks that like mindset's fixed once you've reached a certain point, that you become desensitized to everything and you no longer get anxiety prior to competition or whatever, and it doesn't see that mindset's fluid and needs constant maintenance, then I'm going to write about it, because I know for a fact that mindset is you're constantly having to maintain it. You can go on to like operations and whatever else, and some days you're like, you feel like an imposter. You're having to act out being a Royal Marine because that's what people are expecting. So I just wrote this 7 stages of mindset that I thought that you hit from going out the blocks to goal acquisition to like potentially arriving at cognitive burnout. And I wrote these 7 stages in and padded them all out, went to my agent, my literacy agent, and like 3 or 4 years on, and we're here with publisher came in, and my publisher from Becoming were like, yeah, we love this model. Can you do a bit more on it? So I worked on it for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And then we've developed like this book that's like, really explicitly documents mindset fluidity and why you need to constantly work at wherever you are in these phases of mindset to maintain performance.
That's brilliant. That's so interesting that you say that as well, because strong people can do weak things and weak people can do strong things. It's not fixed, is it? People don't realise, just think that guy's, does everything. He never makes a mistake. He's never scared, and that just isn't the case at all, is it?
No, absolutely not, mate. I mean, one of the first chapters is the misconception of mindset, and it's like people see you as being a para, me as being a Royal Marine, and they just think that we're emotionally we've got no emotions. But what they fail to understand is that we're still human. Our emotions are hardwired, and we need to constantly fight and battle against that to maintain emotional regulation in all these different kind of settings and environments.
There's emotional control, isn't there?
Emotional
rather than
control,
no emotions.
and you only and what gives you, I suppose, elements of that elite mindset to go out and do stuff like that and constantly adapt to different things is just merely emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Once you've learnt yourself and you learn how to regulate, how to manage fear, your anxiety, anything like that. Basically, you can put anybody into the same situation. We're all going to feel the same. It's just people have learned how to deal with them situations differently, and that's all it is. It's just a learned kind of experience.
Absolutely. And that's because I think, you get elite soldiers that are able to emotionally regulate, which is one of the most important things,
Yeah.
And if you can't, you're just not going to be a success. But that's because I'll say this to my son, who's in the process of joining up. He wants to go into paras. He's only 16. He's looking at going to Harrogate. I just said, I shit myself the first 10 years of my adult life, literally every day. Like there's something that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But I had to just get on with it.
Yeah,
and eventually after a bit, I was so fed up of being scared. I was like, I've just thought, fuck this.
Yeah.
And you just kind of surrender it a little bit. And then it's going on still, but it's not anything. My emotions aren't anything that's going to stop me doing what I know needs to be done now.
Yeah.
It's just something that's going on inside. And I move my attention away from it onto the task. And I think a lot of people just go inside and just think about how they're feeling and then let that dictate what their actions are going to be.
Yeah, you've just got to move forward, mate, haven't you? And just, I think from it's a practice path, isn't it, of going down these avenues of adversity and uncertainty, really. And I think you arrive at a place, and I'm sure you have as well. I certainly did in Afghanistan, where I was just like, you can control what you can control and you can emotionally regulate, but then there's certain things that are outside of your control. Yeah. And you just arrive at a place where you're just like, what will be, will be. If my time's up, my time's up. And it doesn't matter where I am, whether I'm in Afghanistan or whether I'm walking streets in Leeds. It's just when your time's up, your time's up. And that I think when you arrive there, you ultimately, you have a great deal of comfort then. You stop your anxiety and all your fear kind of subsides, and you can just kind of just get on. That's a really good observation, that is. I used to find that with parachuting as well. You're doing your equipment jumps, jumping at night, and it's just absolutely terrifying. Like your body just thinks you're going to die. You almost jump into your death, it feels like. Yeah. That's what but then you've done everything you can. You check everything. You've checked everyone. You've
prepared as best as you can, then I had to get into just a surrendering mindset. It's like, fuck it now. Like now everything's done. I have to trust my kit. I have to trust everything else. And if you worry about your own personal safety, same as you're on operations as well, then you're not going to take a step out the gate. You're just going to be worried, are you?
I think you've got to quickly get away from that like self remuneration, because I had it a bit in Iraq when we first went.
Yeah. Was that your first operation as well?
That was my first one, yeah. And it was a really like kind of sensitive operation when lads got captured by Iranians.
Yeah.
Do you know, and they got taken into Tehran, and we went out there, and it were very much like, guys, if you get contacted, you're going to have to fight, because if you get captured again, it's going to be an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But yeah, had we have fought with like Iranian Revolutionary Guard at that point, we would have been slaughtered. Do you know what I mean? Because they had like mounted weapons in the boats that were like 50 cals and stuff. We didn't really have anything at that time. We had nothing. It was a bit embarrassing. And I used to think on a night, like, bloody, like, I might not come home here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or what if we get killed out here and stuff like that? It's an awful place to be. Do you know what I mean? As a really young lad, but you've just got to park it as quickly as you can and just focus on what you can control and what you're doing and stuff like that.
That's it. And you said it in your book as well you said something about, it's about worrying isn't the outcome. So this worrying isn't a good predictor of the future, is it? It's like the worst case scenario. And the thought doesn't rarely match the actual reality. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because that was a real poignant book in your book. And I thought that's bang on, that is, Yeah.
So from a psychological perspective, like human beings, if we forward project too much into the future,
which is common.
Which is very, very common.
People that suffer from anxiety do it, don't they?
Yeah.
So depression is normally, I don't know, I think in the past or something.
Depression's in the past. Yeah. When you ruminate too much in the past, and anxiety is from forward projecting too much. And what we fail to do really is to kind of land in the middle and live in the moment. And that's where we alleviate the two points. Because all we've really got is what we've got now. Me and you sitting here. That's all. That's where we are. That's where we're grounded, right? But by looking into the future, especially like when you're looking at catastrophe-based, fear-based stuff that facilitates worrying, as mind, because it can't predict what's going to happen, because it's got there's no certainties. It creates the worst possible thing or scenario or outcome in order to prepare ourselves for that outcome. And anything below that then
is a bonus.
Yeah. Because like it's like, well, you could die here if you abseil off this cliff and your rope gives away, or your safety equipment loses its integrity. But that's statistically like
very rare,
or if ever going to happen to you. Do you know, it happens to a few people a year or whatever, but it's not going to happen to you. And because we forward project into the future and we're trying to desperately kind of lock down what's going to happen, we create this version of reality that then feeds into our anxiety, and it just puts us in a state of spin, really.
It does. And people that don't act and are controlled by their emotions because of this, they generally suffer. And then the monster in the cupboard gets bigger and bigger until you open the door and realise it's not as big as you think, isn't it?
It's exactly that, mate. Yeah. I mean, you can quite easily succumb to that and just stay in your comfort zone. And you never go through that and get to the other side and think, you know what, I'm worrying for nothing. Yeah. And I think it's that practice path of going through it and and getting the experience where you're just like, you know what, I've been there before and that won't happen. And if you keep pushing through that kind of, that void of the unknown, you start learning to manage your emotions. You know that there's a bit of an illusionist. It's a bit of a
trick, isn't it? It's like a worrying mother-in-law, I call it.
Yeah, it's like the chimp in it. It's just like it's that chimp on your shoulder or in your head or wherever that's telling you to not do it because you're trying to preserve your life. But that massively holds us back. But it's hardwired, that.
Of course, it is survival. Your mind's a survival tool, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not a success tool.
No.
It's there to keep. It's like your mum would, like in maternal instincts with their child, is to keep their child safe.
Yeah.
And not to push it out of its comfort zone so much. And
mate, a lot of the success behaviours that we bang on about that are like the key threads, like consistency, stepping outside of your comfort zone, going through adversity, and stuff like that. All these things go against our hardwiring.
Yeah.
And it's just really important to acknowledge that, because it's just, we've got to go through and against what our innate cognitive structures are telling us not to do.
Absolutely.
And like for instance, like one of the things is we're hardwired to cut corners.
Yeah, we're lazy.
We're lazy because back in like hunter-gatherer times, we wouldn't go out and aimlessly just forage for food. We go out with intent. And if you keep going out when there's no food on the table, you're going to burn all your energy and you're going to potentially die. So we're hardwired to cut corners to preserve that energy.
Absolutely.
So you've got to get over that in order to be successful or get success behaviours underway.
Absolutely. So you need to be aware of your downfalls when you do stuff. So you don't think it's your personal demons. It's not just the hardwiring from millions of years, isn't it?
100%.
And everyone feels the same. But
everybody feels the same.
Some people just do it anyway, and they don't look at reflect how they're feeling. To make that decide what they're going to do. They just keep soldiering on forwards, don't they?
That's it. Yeah. 100%.
Brilliant, mate. And so that kind of brings on a little bit to the other thing that I thought was really good in your book as well, which was, so I'll see if I can say it correctly, compartmentalization. Oh, I said it right the first time. So, and that is so important with basic training, isn't it? Like, it's so long, the training, you've got to do. If you're just thinking of where you are now and the end, and you're in absolute shit state, and the week, 3 days seems like an eternity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that? The importance of that, because that's such a important message.
So like compartmentalization, it's basically, I just called it like breaking large undertakings down. And I kind of stumbled across it in training. I never had like a strategic plan for going in. I'd really like acknowledge the sacrifice of training and what it were going to be, and just thought, you know what, I'm here for a year. It's only a year outside.
You were going to leave anyway, where you could tell by your mindset.
I just thought it's only a year, and that's providing I don't get injured and get back trooped, and I can withstand a year of anything for the rest to live the rest of my life with
as
that title.
A whole different person.
Yeah, and have that kind of background. So I got in there, and straight away, nobody can prepare you for that kind of anxiety. And just what it's like.
Shit, isn't it sometimes?
It's so hostile and just so raw, and so it's at the opposite end of the spectrum from the loving environment that you grow up in with your family and the comfort and the convenience that you've got at home and stuff. It's stripped bare of that.
You think no one wants you to get through, don't you? You don't realise they do.
I don't know. I don't know how anybody gets through. I've been thinking about that. Like, what is it when you think about? Because when you're at work in like corporate offices or wherever you work, and somebody speaks to you funny or whatever, or you have a bad day, you can think, "Fuck this! I'm gonna resign. I'm gonna look for another job." But that's it's every minute.
Yeah.
And
it's
you just
hard,
and people still stay in. I'm like, what's going on?
The key is to do it while you're young, I think. So you're used to people telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, no, sir.
You've got to like want it as well in every kind of thread of your
You've
body.
You've got to be obsessed, I think.
If you're
not absolutely obsessed with it, then you see it, don't you? Do you know, we found, and you said it really well as well, you had to kind of redefine what you thought an alpha male was. And I thought that was really good, because that's so true. Because when I got there, I was one of the youngest, and some of the blokes there were men, and some of them, they were so fit. I remember we did a run, one of the first runs, the hardest thing I ever done. The first run was a 3 miler, and we got absolutely thrashed within an inch of our lives. And I thought, oh my God, this is like the first PT session. Yeah. It's going to get harder. I'm ever going to get through it. And within 2 weeks, some of the big guys, the athletes, they're all leaving. They were going, fuck this. I miss my girlfriend.
All that.
So and then the ones you don't think, just don't leave.
The dark horses, mate.
Get through.
Yeah, the dark horses.
Sergeant majors, and they just don't leave.
Yeah, like on selection.
You just wouldn't be able to pick, would you?
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you have like really hard times at the start, and I just thought like, if I don't work something out mentally here, as mental strategy.
Did you think that?
I just thought this is just going to be the thought of like a year of this is going to switch anybody off. Do you know what I mean? I don't care how mentally strong you are. If you think, keep thinking like I've got a year of this or 10 months to a year of this, you're going to go. So I just thought, I'm just going to take 1 week at a time. I'm going to break training down into weeks. I'm going to get through each day. On a Sunday, I'll celebrate that I've boxed off week 1.
Yeah.
And then I'll do week 2. And I'm not going to look too far ahead, because if I look at like week 15 or I think week 20, when you've got like I don't know when it is, but you've got a 12-mile load carry with like masses amount of kit.
You've got all the horror stories from everyone that's done it as well, haven't you?
Yeah,
but remember,
yeah.
bearing in mind, they're going to make it sound even worse because it makes them sound 100%, good. And the ones that didn't make it want to make it sound impossible to justify their failure of it.
That's it.
So it's like, again, it's about what you're saying is the moment doesn't reflect.
But that influences you, right, at the start.
Of course it does. The horror stories, like, oh shit.
Yeah, not until like you get some experience and you're on the opposite side of it, you realise that, oh, that's just, it's all part of the game, innit? The mental game. But yeah, I just broke it down, mate, and I broke it down into weeks, and I think, and I've applied that rule to everything I've ever done. Like I went to uni. I went to uni for over like 6 years, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna break training down into the uni, the term time down into weeks. And I've just always done that. I've broke things down into weeks and just taking it like that. And I think it's that stops you from venturing too far into the future.
Yeah.
Because when you forward project too far, I think you only ever get negatives, really.
You do. You just never.
So you just better just to give your mind little chunks of what it can manage, and don't worry about what's going to come in future, because you will naturally be ready when you get there. And that's a massive kind of lesson that I've learned from trusting the process, is just don't worry too far. Just concentrate on what you've got to do now. Attention to detail, and
it's very zen, isn't it? It is very zen.
Yeah.
It's like in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's where the quality of work comes as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're not really stressed. You can be anxious, but it's not to the degree that you will be by the thought of something, because you can't act in the future. You can act now.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do something, and it alleviates that feeling, doesn't it?
If you just invest in the now, and with attention to detail, and you've got consistency in that,
that's what success is, isn't it?
It is, mate.
It's doing every little thing, little things
possible that you can.
Yeah, little things are success. Is what success is made upon, isn't it? Lots
100%.
of small things done consistently to the very best of your effort.
Yeah.
Plus time equal and consistency.
Yeah.
Because if you do it for a little bit and then you stop, then you're going to get nothing, are you? It's got to be consistent.
Just consistent all the way in. And I think that you've got to subscribe to like delayed gratification, where you invest now without any immediate or guaranteed return. And we struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like classic example is like people that are looking to lose weight, and they diet for a couple of days, jump on scales, and they've lost no weight, and they think, oh, fuck this, I'm sacking that off. We struggle with investing now without any foresight or guarantee of future reward or return. But that's where it's at.
Do you know what I do? When I think about what I'm doing, when I set goals, it's very similar to what you do. Set the goal, then I figure out the first step, and I surrender I don't even think about the goal. I just submerge myself in the action that's needed to do the first thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's compartmentalization.
Compartmentalization,
yeah. That is exactly what you do.
That's exactly what it is.
There's no anxiousness. You get real quality into the work that you do.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy it then. Because all you do, if you keep thinking of the end, you just fill the gap, and that causes stress, doesn't it? Because it's so far away sometimes. But then once you've surrendered it, if you're on the right path anyway, you don't need to think of the goal. You just need to fully invest in what you're doing, and then once you've done that, you just do the next thing.
The thing is, mate, if you try and box off too much of that goal structure or that goal alignment that you think it is, that can quite easily send you off on a different path.
That's true as well, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? So
just
focus on your immediate and what you feel is that first fundamental like building block or that foundation. And once you've got there, a new avenue or path that were unforeseen will probably open up or might open up. Do you know what I mean? So it's just compartmentalization.
No plan survives contact as well, does it?
It's all that,
so
mate.
You have a plan, you have a detailed plan, and then that just goes to rat shit immediately.
Yeah. You've just got to be ultimately like mentally adaptable.
So your objective stays the same, but your approach, there's 1,000 ways to the top of the mountain, isn't there? So you still need to get to the top of the mountain, but once you're on the ground, you might the chosen path might not be ideal. You might see something else, or there might be something stopping it.
Look, if you've invested in this, what you thought that this like next phase in the process, you could invest in that, and all of a sudden you see this, and you're like, that's actually better, or that's a better way of building something, or building a business, or a better way of that I want to attack this goal. And then all of a sudden you've wasted so much time and energy and probably finance in this, and it's not detrimental to your goal acquisition really, but it's just wasted energy, that.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get locked in on things that, can't you?
Yeah.
And then you have to literally step back and go, actually, that's a better route. Because you just, especially when you've got that mindset, you're just determined to get to that goal.
Just
and
blinkers,
sometimes you go, actually, am I just trying to get that for the sake of it? Is there a better way of doing this?
Yeah.
You have to kind of surrender that a little bit and move on and find a better way. But what you've just described then is the ideal entrepreneurial mindset and the way of tackling business.
And that, like, touching on that, mate, what you discussed earlier about Royal Marines, Paras and SF being good entrepreneurs. When you think about it, mate, there's no greater like plight of entrepreneurship than going into like them elite military regiments, because the odds stacked against you are absolutely massive. If you're going to be successful, and you have to find a way through all that adversity and them obstacles in order to be successful, you've got to be ultimately mentally adaptable and constantly adapt to change. And that is the fundamental backbone of being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think that the people that are successful in Marines, Paras and SF, they're just perfectly suited to be entrepreneurs, and it's just not tapped into. And the Murphy's 3 laws sum that up really well as well, don't they? I actually quote those in my business talks as well to people. You know, everything's harder than you think it's going to be. Everything takes longer than you think it's going to take. What's the other one? There's another one as well. I can't remember them all off heart now, but they are basically like everything's going to take a lot more effort. It's going to be a lot harder to do than you think, and it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Yeah. So people just put an initial bit of energy into something and then disheartened it doesn't work and then stop. When you have to, that's where you need to push past where everyone else stops. You've just got to see it through. Yeah. You've just got to see it through. And I think what I always kind of live by really is just you finish what you start. Yeah. If you start something, just finish it. And I teach me and my son, we have that kind of saying. We've done like sections at Three Peaks and stuff like that, and various other Scarfell Pike when they were really young, like 6 or 7 years old. And we've always had like this thing where we just like...
Child abuse.
Yeah. A few people have said that before.
Like it though. I'm probably guilty of a bit of that anyway in my own career.
Yeah, but it's been great. And like we've always said, like, listen, we finish what we start. But he applies it to everything now. He's like, can we stay up and watch Lord of the Rings?
He's manipulating you.
Yeah, and he's like, it's on for 3 hours. It's on for 3 hours, mate. And he's like, we finish what we start. And I'm like, no, we don't, because you're going to be like, we're going to be here till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Clever lad. How old is he now?
He's nearly 9.
Is he? Oh, it's great, isn't it? When you can impart your knowledge onto your kids.
Yeah, and they absorb it as well. It's really rewarding.
You hear them talk to their friends about stuff and give them a pep talk.
It's good, mate. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's another part in your book as well. You talk about rehearsal. Yeah. I thought that was really good because that's something you have to do so much in the military. People don't realise, do they, that you have to practice and practice and practice something over and over again, because in the reality, when you're going to do it, you're going to be in absolute shit state. You could be terrified for your life. Yeah. And it
just has to become second nature.
It has to just be second nature. Do you want to talk a little bit about rehearsal as well?
Yeah, so rehearsal. So it's just whatever we're kind of be going into, or whatever we were like learning, or a new skill, or I think the greatest kind of representation of rehearsals would be like CQB, close quarter battle, like going into houses and stuff. And it's just, it sounds like really kind of Gucci when you're talking about it, or you're like going into mock houses, into mock buildings, and you're doing CQB, and it's really cool. And it's like, it is like the best.
It is cool stuff, isn't it?
It is. It's like the best aspects of like soldiering and stuff. And I mean, I absolutely loved it, but you rehearse on the same room, on the same buildings constantly, to the point where you're absolutely just threaders, right? You're just like completely like fed up and worn out. But like you said, mate, it's so important, because you, like you said, if you're tired or something goes wrong, it has to be like second nature. You've got to drill them like second nature behaviours, to almost like innate behaviours, really. And that's really important. It has a bit of a detrimental effect, really, where if you're not mentally adaptable on that, and your rehearsals are too rigid, then what happens when it goes wrong? So it can be a bit detrimental. We got attacked by pirates in Somalia, and I didn't do any rehearsals, like counter piracy rehearsals at all with the team, because I just thought that the attack could take any kind of manifestation. And if you keep rehearsing to the same kind of thing, what happens, like if it pans out a different way, and you freeze, or you're not mentally kind of adaptable to that attack. So
yeah, so you think you might limit yourself almost by just being too rigid in what you think you can do, so you can't think outside the box and just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it sometimes can inhibit your ability to think outside of the box. Like you said, like being like mentally adaptable. I think, what did you say earlier on? You said something about no plan survives the first contact.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
It's that.
Yeah.
So you've got to bear that in mind, that like this could go wrong, and then how do we kind of deviate from that plan effectively?
Yeah,
whilst maintaining performance.
Absolutely. Well, it's the process of learning, isn't it? You know, initially you're unconsciously incompetent.
Yeah.
So you shit, but you don't know you are. So I use this analogy in martial arts. So the average man overestimates his ability of how tough he is by about 300%. So something stupid like that. I don't know the stats, don't quote me. And then they go to their martial arts class and they get choked out or kicked in the face by a 15-year-old.
And that goes to minus 300 then.
Yeah, then they go, actually, then they become consciously incompetent.
Yeah.
So they now know, actually, I'm not very good at this.
Yeah.
But that's where learning starts.
Yeah.
Because you can't start if you already think you're good at something. You have to recognize you're not. So for some people, that puts them off, but for others, they're then able to push forwards. Then you get to the point of being consciously competent, which you do through drills, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
But to be unconsciously competent, you push beyond the drills then, so you're able to like freestyle and know and think on your feet without having to use structures.
Yes.
And you know, you see this with top level dancers, top level fighters, rappers. You know, they start off with structure and rehearsals and practice over and over again, and to the point where they don't need it and they're just able to, you know.
We were I were at Leeds Rhinos last week or week before.
Yeah, I saw it post,
Yeah, and just doing some, like I did a talk like with the first team and stuff, and I was speaking to Rowan Smith and Chev Walker at coaching staff at Leeds, and we were talking about Marines and Paras and SF, do you know what I mean? And like it's just a freestyle. Do you know what I mean? Now you've got to stay like mentally adaptable, and now you've got to
cuffing it.
Yeah,
this is another thing I was going to talk to you about. You might as well talk about that now. Then while we're getting onto it, because that's another one. But that doesn't mean just, people don't realise that doesn't just mean make it up. It means you're so rehearsed and drilled in many areas that when you're exposed to something, you know what to do. You've got the confidence to try.
That's it,
haven't you? You know,
and you know what, mate? I think that is like the light on the touch paper.
Yeah.
For entrepreneurial thinking.
Yeah.
That cuffing it, and it's like you said, it's like cuffing. It's not cutting corners or taking the easy option or whatever. It's getting presented with a problem. Like it could be a complex problem, it could be something that you're just not used to, or that's outside of your experience, your job spec, whatever it could be, and you take it on, and you find a way of making it work or getting success in that particular directive or whatever that you've been given, and ultimately that's entrepreneurship. Do you know what I mean? You're having to be entrepreneurial. You're having to think outside of the box. It's not like getting a problem or an obstacle thrown at you and saying, you know what, I can't do that. I need to can somebody else do it?
Yeah, you don't currently have the skill set to do something.
But you learn. You learn
necessity as well sometimes. Yeah. When pressure's put on you, this is why pressure is so valuable sometimes.
And you back yourself. Like you think, right, I've just got to do this. I've got to make this work. And you make it work. And you always find success in it. Or an element of success, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think, mate, I've carried that on since I've left Marines. It's just like, I'm just going to cuff it. Do you know what I mean? Like we're writing first book. I've never wrote a book in my life until I wrote the first one.
Crayon, did you?
Yeah. Big crayons like that. And I was just like...
certainly because everyone says that to me. I've just thought I've put the joke on you.
Definitely Paras, mate, that are like writing in crayons, mate. Not Marines.
It's got loads of pictures in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, and stickers. But yeah, cuffing it, mate, it's just never shying away from something that you don't know how to do or know what to do, and just getting it done and getting the result that you need.
Was it Richard Branson said, wasn't it? Did you quote that in your book?
I have, mate. Yeah.
What was it? Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, he's got a famous quote that just says, if you ever get offered a job that you don't know what to do, take it and learn on the way.
Exactly.
And that is cuffing it.
Yeah.
You're just absolutely cuffing it. Like, never get overwhelmed by something. Basically, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're always ready. I spoke about this at Leeds as well. It's just like we're always waiting, thinking that we're never quite ready. to take on this new job or a new challenge or whatever. I were like it before I went in Marines. I first signed up for the Navy, and I was like,
I saw that.
I'll do Navy.
You see a lot of people do that with the army, as for the paras. They go, I'll go in that, and then I'll transfer.
Because it's a safer, mentally and everything in it. It's just a safer option. And I would like, I'll go for Navy and I'll transfer to Marines. I know it was going to be quite tough.
Never happened.
Never have happened.
It wouldn't have
never have happened. Not in retrospect, knowing not what I know now. My dad just said, "You ready? Like, stop fucking about. You're ready."
That's good.
And as soon as he said that,
I had that chat with you.
And as soon as he said that, I was like,
you knew you were though.
I'm ready.
Yeah, you knew you were though, deep down. I think
I did, mate. Yeah, I did. And then I phoned the careers office up the next day, and I was just like, I want to just go for the Marines, and we're like, that we think you're perfectly suited for that anyway, and that were it.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I think we're always waiting because we never feel that we're ready, and you just got to cuff it. Yeah, basically the philosophy of that.
You never really have the full proper confidence to 100% know you can do something until after you've completed it. I always tell people this.
Yeah.
So what you can have is full confidence in your ability that you will do everything and utilize every resource and persevere until you get the job done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And once you do that, then you'll take on tasks, won't you?
Yeah. It's like end of training, classic example. You get to like, you go in, you see lads that are doing commando tests like 30 weeks ahead of you. And you're like, they must be so mentally tough and emotionally like absent that they're just like, that's a formality, they're going to do it. The reality is when you get to like week 30, week 31 and you're doing tests, you're absolutely shitting yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know if you can do it. All you know is that I've got full trust in myself based on what's just happened in the last 30 weeks and I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
And that really is your silver bullet to success. As soon as you're like, I'm not going to quit and I'll die trying. When you're there, you're ultimately unstoppable. And you don't really often realise that. But all these same anxieties and stuff like that you had at the start, you've still got.
Yeah, bigger because the pressure's on now.
The pressure's on, but you're not emotionally absent. You're not anything. You like you said, you don't know you're going to do it until you've done it.
Yeah, it's like my son at the minute. He's trying to go into Harrogate. He goes on the selection next Monday, and he's obviously a bit apprehensive for it. Not because of his abilities, he knows he can do it. We had a few hurdles medically to overcome first of all. So, he said, "Oh, I'll be all right when I get that done." I said, "You won't, because then you'll be shitting yourself on every major exercise you go to, and then for P company, and then when you do your jumps, and then when you go to it does not end.
It never ends.
I said it doesn't end.
Yeah, it never ends.
Yeah,
it does never end. And I think that was one of the key things that I wanted to touch on in book 2. Why I wanted to do it, because it's like you look at these people. I don't know, big time UFC fighters, athletes, whoever, all these big names and stuff like that. They're ultimately successful, and people just think that it's a given. That they haven't got these anxieties, that they haven't got these obstacles that they need to get over daily. The thing is, like, you've got like massive UFC fighters that are spewing up in toilet because they're so nervous before they go out and fight. Some don't actually like fighting. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or they're scared to death of fighting, but they go out and just do it because it's just part of the whole thing that they love. Do you know what I mean?
Love it afterwards.
Yeah. And
gobbing off afterwards when you've done it.
Yeah, exactly. And you just don't really, we fail to acknowledge all the different avenues and threads of why people do things. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not, people don't always do it because they want to win. No. Do you know what I mean? They're doing it for all different kind of reasons.
I think it's great when people hear someone like yourself say things like this and think, well, if he feels those, then that's okay for me too. Yeah. Because it was really good. I love the honesty in your book as well. I thought that was really good. A good honest, because, it's not something you really, like, you were honest in your notes, because I think that's probably you, wasn't it, to yourself? But I would imagine you probably wasn't saying these things to the people in your troop, or were you? Not because you keep that to yourself, don't you? Because you don't want to show anyone any fear. You don't want to show any weakness, any fear. Yeah. You're worried, nah, I'm a fuck pussy. What are you being worried for?
Exactly that.
Piece of piss.
Yeah,
like, that's what you're saying, and that's what they're thinking, oh, well, he's all right. And and then they're pretending they're all right when everyone's...
And it's a young thing as well, right? Yeah. You harbour all that kind of emotional dialogue because you don't want to route it. Yeah. I don't think it's till you get older that you feel comfortable and confident to be able to say, you know what, I'm not feeling right here, or I'm shitting myself, or I don't think I can do this, or I don't think I'm going to win. Do you know what I mean? But it's always there. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a real key thing for people that are like waiting for the right time, which is never going to come, but they're waiting for...
If you wait, you'll never do it.
This opportunity to be this full person that they're envisioning about themselves.
Yeah, that be that person that's got the confidence to do it.
Yeah, but you're never that. I've never like got full confidence in going to be successful, but I'm just like, I'm going to give it a go, and I'm just going to do everything I can to make it happen, and that is what gets me to the end.
Yeah. So is that, you know, that mindset that you're talking about now? You hear a lot of like Marines and some of the SBS lads, quite a few of the SBS lads that are in the limelight now.
Yeah,
obviously came from the Marines, so they've had quite a lot of exposure recently, and they all were very mature with their approach to this. But do you think, is that something that's instilled within the Marines training, or something just because they're a bit older that they've kind of reflected back on? Do you think, to be able to?
I think there's probably a lot of self-reflection, but we are like in training. I mean, they say, don't they? And it is a thing. Like the Marines produce a thinking soldier. Yeah, you kind of left your own devices. You're allowed to challenge things and stuff like that. We have no kind of rank structure, and I think just going on that process really like, it's a bit like of a lifetime. It's a lifetime lived, condensed into a year in terms of what you get out of it.
Absolutely.
And you come out and you're like so well-rounded. But I was speaking to Chris Oliver for Book 2's new DS on SAS, Who Dares Wins. And I was saying like, what on selection, I think he was like one of 22 out of 250 that went on it. And he was one of 22 that like passed out. I think that's quite accurate.
That's normal. That's
normal, yeah. And I just said like, what was it on that process that you've got all these people, 250 people that are going on, and they've all, to a certain extent, a large majority of that, right? Maybe like 75% have got the aptitude to pass SF selection. Yeah. I said to him like,
they wouldn't be there otherwise,
what is it?
Yeah.
What is it that like, they've dumped military, Marines, paras.
Yeah, it's all the best
Navy.
People that are going for it, isn't it? All the best soldiers.
So what is it? Like, barring injury, what is it? And he just said they didn't mentally prepare for it. They weren't mentally prepared for what it was.
How do you mentally prepare though? Do you know what I mean?
And I just said like, what's that? And he just said, it's just basically, it's being cold, wet and tired, and it's that minute by minute need to be mentally robust minute by minute, just like, this is shit, it's absolutely crap, and just keep fighting away that self-talk. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of people, as soon as they get cold and wet, a couple of hours or a day of that, and they're just like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore.
It's horrible, don't it?
It is horrible. Mate,
people don't understand, do they?
Awful.
They don't understand.
It's like wet and dry and stuff like that. When you sat 5 o'clock in the morning.
Some of your stuff in the book was funny about doing the wet and dry, because it's just horrible. People will never understand unless they have to do wet and dry routine.
That is the most mentally tough. Like,
do you just want to explain in case anyone's listening that doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, so wet and dry is basically you go in the field.
I'd say you guys do that more than us, because you're Marines. The nature of your job is you're in the water.
We kind of pride ourselves on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like we are like the kings of this. Do you know what I mean? But it's basically you go into the field on operations or on exercise or whatever, and you have 2 sets of kit. You have your kit that you're wearing, and then you have a dry set of kit.
Yeah.
And if you get the kit that you're wearing wet, you have to change out of that every single constantly. Yeah. So when you get into your sleeping bag on a night,
you normally in
like
shit state.
leopard crawling through
accidentally, obviously.
Yeah,
accidentally on purpose.
Yeah. And you have to get out your dry clothes, pitch black, no light or anything, and put your wet clothes, put your dry clothes on, get in your sleeping bag. Then when you get out your sleeping bag for Century or on a morning, you have to get out your dry clothes and put your wet clothes back on to always maintain the integrity of this dry set of clothes in your sleeping
alive,
bag.
Won't they?
Yeah, because that obviously gives you like
comfort.
the operational kind of sustainment while you're out. But I mean, there's times in winter when you're getting out your sleeping bag on a morning at like 5 o'clock, and it's like you're in like Dartmoor would become, it's blowing a gale, and you have to put these wet clothes on, and lads are smashing them off trees, the trousers to put them on, and you're sat in them all day.
It's an emotional moment getting them on, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the most mentally taxing thing you could ever go through, I think. And it's that like, It's that breaks people. And that's what Chris were kind of alluding to. It's that.
It's not the PT, is it? Do you know what I mean? The PT is hard anyway, but that's a given. If you're going to join the Marines or the Paras, or especially if you want to go SF, then you've got to be super fit, right? That bit's a given, but that's 10%, I'd say, of the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things like that
I mean,
people can't prepare for or don't realise how shit they're going to be, do they?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like the fist side of it, if you say, hypothetically, you've got like an hour or two of phys a day. I know it's often longer for yomps and tabbing and whatnot. It's a small proportion of your day. And it's like, what happens then for the next 22 hours? And it's that I think that if you're training for selection, you're training for the fist side of it. I don't think you're training right. Yeah. Outside of that, where am I going to be mentally?
Yeah,
and that's what Chris were alluding to. It's like,
they just go on the hills, don't they, for a few weeks and get the fizz up, and that's how people prepare.
And you just think, you know what? I've been tabbing or yomping with like 51 pound and stuff. I'm good. I'm in good shape. I feel fit and I feel strong. But like, what happens when you're piss wet through and you're cold and you're wet and you're just eating rations, and like, that's when you start questioning what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Definitely.
Absolutely, mate. So and one more thing that you said in your book as well, which I thought was really useful for people, was staying away from the things that don't benefit you. And I think you gave some really good examples within the book by literally living it the hard way, going home, getting on the piss all weekend for days and then coming back. Yeah. And then if you want to be successful, it's like what you realize quite quickly. You do this when you're younger anyway, don't you? Because you want to have all the fun as well. You have to kind of, every decision you make will either bring you one step closer to where you want to go or one step further away. Yeah. And you are kind of almost self-sabotaging a little bit at some stages.
Massively,
You see that a lot though, the red button I call it, and you see it a lot in the reg. Yeah. People I've got everything set up, go on the piss.
I'll press the red button. I press the red button all the time, mate.
Ruin their career.
Yeah. The parachute came out just pulled the pin every single. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was just like, I don't know, mate.
You didn't make things easy for yourself, did you?
No, not at all, mate.
When I was reading it, I was going, especially like your commando week as well. You come back 3 weeks. I thought, screw the fucking nut for yourself, mate.
Yeah.
Did you have a week off or something, was it? Or was it a long weekend?
Yeah, so how it fell was we did Final X, which is final exercise at like week 25, week 26. We went home on Christmas leave
so you had
for
a couple
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I went out every single day, like from morning until night.
Though, didn't you? That's the nature of the young men in the military.
It was just chaos. Like,
was it fun though?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun until 4 days before I know we're going back, and I am in absolute shit state. I've not trained, and we were going straight to commando tests. And I was on my way back down to Livingston, and I'm like, well, I failed all commando test run-throughs that week.
Yeah, no wonder, because you're on a flipping massive hangover.
A massive
your
bender.
Body's just in shock, but then your time started to go up. All the alcohol, you recover so much and so quickly when you're young, though, don't you?
But you know what? That
it shows mindset, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll know yourself. It's like I had a propensity to press the red button anyway. Yeah, that's just how I was kind of hardwired, right? It was very much like I'd be in like this military setting where I had to conform, and I was really not able to step out of it and just be myself. And when I left to go on leave, it was like
a blowout.
Boom. Yeah, massive blowout. And I did it all the time, and it would just did it bigger and better than anybody. Do you know what I mean? And I went off and did that, and
it does show though an immense mindset though. This is what they do. Do this a lot in the paras. You got your it's always company piss up on a Thursday and then a 10-miler Friday morning.
That's it.
Anytime we got fucking everyone would be out, 2 hours sleep, and absolutely hardest first session you can imagine.
Exactly.
We've got a really hard day tomorrow, and it's almost like people tease ourselves into doing it. We better go on the piss, then, haven't we?
Yeah. It was just obviously when you join unit and stuff like that, and as a really junior or sprog Marine, do you know what I mean? They had a thing where anybody senior to you, if they called a night out, everybody that were junior to the senior that had called it had to go out. Yeah. So you were out every single night, and you had your troop phys next day, 8-mile runs and all this load carries and all stuff like that, and you were just constantly
think, why do I do
in
it
the
to
hurt
myself?
locker. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's not a good place to be. You know, when you're absolutely minging and then you have to do a 10 miler or whatever.
There's like lads coming in, mate, from a night out, still in like
just get changed.
Still in like the shoes. Do you know what I mean? Like with like leather soles, no grip on them, and they're having to go out in the shoes and the shirt and the jeans, running on a 10 miler because they hadn't a chance to go home and get changed. That's how it used to be.
Funny.
It was just brutal, just absolutely brutal.
Character building. So they say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, like you said earlier, there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities with the parachute regiment and the Marines. You've obviously got the fucking fizz monsters, like really good at the fizz, elite mindsets, great soldiers, pride themselves, got brotherhood. But I think outside of those things, they're totally different. Outside of that, a lot of people don't realise it. It's a whole like rebranding. Obviously, one's got the maroon beret, the other's got the green beret. So they're all striving for something which is out of reach and unattainable, seemingly, to become part of this, this group. But then there's very different cultures within it as well. So
very
it's
different.
Quite interesting. You work with some paras. Because I'd say the Marines almost a little bit more, I'd say a little bit more grown up. The paras there's a lot of hand grenades in there, isn't there? And a lot of bullshiness and all the rest of it. Marines love dressing up as chicks.
Yeah.
Paras like dressing up as something a bit more manly normally, like Spartans or in toga. But there is, and they got on. When I was in, you didn't really ever, the Marines were very in their own. You didn't see them at all. But then SFSJ came along and they've been working together. And so many of the paras and Marines are best mates now, aren't they? They tease each other and there's a lot of banter, but there's a lot of similarities. But I want to talk a bit about some of the differences a little bit before we finish as well.
Yeah. So I'd never like really seen the paras and whatnot. You heard you get kind of a biased approach during training,
of course you do.
And in the mill as well, where you just like paras this, paras that, and we had odd scrap with each other when we were in the bar and whatnot, and all stuff like that. All good. And then when I left Marines, I ended up doing hostile CP in Afghan, and the team structure was more or less a 50-50 split of ex-Marines and ex-paras, and it was my first time ever like really living amongst like you guys and stuff, and. Like, firstly, mate, there were just like all the stuff that you'd learn kind of fell away, and they were all like just completely amazing lads. Do you know what I mean? Still friends with them now, like Nath Jones and other people like that, and just really, really good lads. But they rocked up into Afghan. They had like para t-shirts, para cups, para slippers. Do you know what I mean? Like para socks.
Obsessive.
Everything was para-regged, para flags above the beds. We had nothing.
Yeah.
We just rocked up with his kit, and like we were just like, you lads were like really overt, like spewing para-reg stuff. Everything were P Company and Joe's and Jack's or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And we were just like really conservative and more mature and more, I think more together. Do you know what I mean? But I think if you ask me like, did I feel comfortable in that environment with having you boys around? Like 1,000%.
Yeah, if it goes off, you want them there, don't you? You know they're going to be. Paras are good. Closing with and killing the enemy. Do you know what I mean?
We were just like we've got like we've got Marines here, which we know, the lads here, which we know. Then we've got paras, and it was just this wonderful like eclectic mix of people, and you're just like
nice teamwork, nice mix and fusion.
Yeah, and you won't want it like you can have all the whatever in the world, do you know what I mean? Like saying about the paras or the this, the that, the that. But if you asked anybody, who would you want to go to war with? It'd be you boys.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Brilliant, mate. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast, mate. It's been a really interesting and enjoyable conversation.
It's been great, mate.
Yeah, it's good.
It's been good.
Some good stuff out there for people to listen to.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming down.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, mate.
I look forward to getting you reading your new book when it comes out.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy, mate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Great.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate.